The text message that destroyed my life arrived at 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, right as I was reviewing blueprints for what would become the most expensive mistake of my career. We need a bigger diamond. My ex is making fun of my ring on Instagram. I stared at my phone, watching those words burn themselves into my retinas like acid. Jessica Harper, my fiancée of 8 months, the woman I'd proposed to with a 2-carat princess cut that cost me 3 months' salary, wanted a bigger rock because her ex-boyfriend was publicly mocking her engagement ring. My name is Mike Harper, and I'm an architect. I design buildings that last centuries, structures built on solid foundations with careful planning and precise calculations. I should have applied that same logic to my relationship with Jess. Mike, you seeing this? Eli Rodriguez, my business partner and best friend since college, burst into my office holding his laptop. Your girl's all over social media talking about upgrading her ring. I looked at Eli's screen. There was Jess, posing with her ring hand prominently displayed, responding to comments about the diamond's size. It's just the beginning, she'd written. Mike's going to surprise me with something much bigger soon. The comments underneath made my stomach turn. Her friends were encouraging her, suggesting she deserved better, and that I was clearly holding back. But the worst comment came from Derek Price, her boss at the PR firm where she worked. Some men just don't understand what quality looks like. Maybe you need someone who appreciates true value. Jesus, Mike, Eli said, reading over my shoulder. She's basically advertising that she's available for an upgrade. I closed the laptop and walked to my office window, looking out at the Boston skyline. My firm had designed 3 of those buildings. I was successful, respected, financially stable. But apparently that wasn't enough for Jessica Harper. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Jess. Can we meet tonight? I have some ideas about the wedding budget. Maybe we can reallocate some funds toward the ring? I typed back, sure. Let's talk. But I had no intention of buying her a bigger diamond. In fact, I was starting to think about returning the one I'd already bought. That evening, Jess arrived at our shared apartment in Beacon Hill, wearing a new dress I'd never seen before. Designer, expensive, definitely not something she could afford on her PR salary. You look nice, I said, though something about her appearance felt calculated, like she was dressed for an audience. Thanks, baby. She kissed my cheek, leaving a lipstick mark I didn't bother to wipe off. So, I've been thinking about our conversation earlier. You mean your text demanding a bigger diamond? Her smile faltered slightly. I wouldn't call it demanding. I just think we should consider making a statement with our engagement. You know how important image is in my industry. Your industry? Since when did our engagement become a marketing campaign? Jess sat down on our white leather couch, crossing her legs in a way that used to drive me crazy. Now it just looked rehearsed. Mike, you have to understand. Derek's been talking about bringing me in as a partner at the firm. These things matter. The people I work with, the clients we entertain, they notice details. Derek's been talking about making you a partner? I kept my voice level, but something cold was spreading through my chest. That's interesting. You never mentioned that before. It just came up recently. He's been very supportive of my career growth. I walked to our kitchen and poured myself a scotch, taking my time to process what I was hearing. When I turned back, Jess was scrolling through her phone, probably checking her Instagram likes. So let me understand this, I said. You want me to spend another $10,000 or $15,000 on a bigger diamond because your boss thinks it will help your career? It's not just Derek. It's about us, Mike. About showing the world that we're serious about our future together. By going into debt for a piece of jewelry. Her perfectly manicured fingers tightened around her phone. It's not about the money. It's about what the ring represents. It's about you showing that you value me enough to make a real investment. I thought the investment was our relationship, our future, the life we're building together. Jess stood up, her voice rising. God, Mike, sometimes you're so practical it's suffocating. Can't you just once do something romantic? Something that shows you understand what I need? What you need, or what Derek thinks you need? The question hung in the air between us like a challenge. Jess's cheeks flushed, and for a moment I saw something flicker across her face. Guilt, maybe, or fear of being caught. "That's not fair," she said finally. "Derek is my boss. Of course I care about his opinion professionally. Professionally. Right." I finished my scotch and set the glass down harder than necessary. "Tell me something, Jess. When you post about our relationship on social media, who are you really trying to impress? I don't know what you're implying. I'm not implying anything. I'm asking directly. Is this about us, or is this about competing with other people? Because from where I'm standing, it feels like you're more interested in winning some kind of social media contest than actually being engaged to me." Jess grabbed her purse from the coffee table. "I can't talk to you when you're like this. You're being paranoid and jealous." "Jealous of what?" "Nothing. Forget it. I'm going to stay at Tara's tonight. Maybe tomorrow you'll be ready to have a mature conversation about our future." She headed for the door, then turned back. "And Mike? The ring isn't just about me, it's about us. If you can't understand that, maybe we need to reconsider what we're doing here." The door slammed behind her, leaving me alone with my doubts and a growing certainty that my fiancé was lying to me about something important. I picked up my phone and scrolled through Jess's recent Instagram posts. There were dozens of photos from the past few weeks that I'd never seen before. Expensive dinners at restaurants we'd never been to together. Cocktails at upscale bars in the financial district. Shopping trips to Newberry Street with bags from stores that cost more than most people's rent. And in several of the photos, tagged in the background or mentioned in the comments, was Derek Price. I clicked on his profile. Derek was 43, recently divorced, and apparently very interested in documenting his newfound single life. His feed was full of expensive cars, luxury vacations, and photos from high-end restaurants. The same restaurants where Jess had been posting photos. My phone rang. Eli's name appeared on the screen. "Hey man, you okay? Sarah saw Jess's posts today and thought you might want to talk." Sarah was Eli's wife, and one of the few people who'd been honest about her reservations regarding Jess from the beginning. "I'm fine," I lied. "Just working through some relationship stuff." "Mike, can I ask you something? And don't get pissed at me for asking." "Shoot." "Do you trust her?" The question hit me like a physical blow, probably because I'd been avoiding asking it myself. "Why would you ask that?" "Because Sarah's been following her social media, and some things don't add up. The places she's been, the things she's buying, the people she's hanging around with. Either you're spending a lot more money than you're telling me, or she's got another source of income." I walked back to the window, looking out at the city lights. "What kind of other source?" "I don't know, man. But Derek Price has been liking and commenting on every single one of her posts. And from what Sarah tells me, that guy's got a reputation." "What kind of reputation?" "The kind where he dates women who work for him, then promotes them when things get serious. His ex-wife left him because of it." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. How does Sarah know all this? She works in PR, remember? Boston's a small town when it comes to that industry. Everyone knows everyone else's business. After I hung up with Eli, I sat in my apartment for a long time, thinking about the past few months. The late nights Jess claimed were work events, the new clothes and jewelry that appeared in her closet. The way she'd started talking about Derek's opinions on everything from restaurants to vacation destinations, and the way she'd looked when I'd asked about him tonight, like someone who'd been caught in a lie she wasn't ready to confess. I walked to my bedroom and opened the safe where I kept important documents. The receipt for Jess's engagement ring was still there, along with the insurance paperwork. 2 carats, princess cut, $8,400. I folded the receipt and put it in my wallet. Tomorrow, I was going to have a conversation with the jeweler about their return policy. But first, I was going to find out exactly what kind of work events my fiancée had been attending. The next morning, I called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. Instead of going to my office, I drove to the financial district and parked across the street from Jess's building. I felt like a stalker, but I needed to see something with my own eyes. At 8:45 a.m., Derek Price's silver Range Rover pulled into the parking garage beneath the building. At 8:47, Jess's red BMW followed it down the same ramp. They'd arrived at work together. I sat in my car for another hour, trying to come up with innocent explanations. Maybe they'd run into each other at a coffee shop. Maybe Derek had offered her a ride because her car was having problems. Maybe I was being paranoid, just like she'd accused me of being. But when I called Jess at 10 a.m., she answered on the first ring with a story about how she'd taken the T to work because of traffic, and how she was swamped with a new client presentation that would probably keep her at the office until late. My fiancé was lying to me. The question was, about what, and for how long? I spent the rest of the day doing something I'd never done before, investigating the woman I was supposed to marry. I started with social media, going back through months of posts, looking for patterns I'd missed. What I found made my chest tight with a combination of anger and humiliation. For the past 3 months, Jess had been living a double life. While she was telling me she was working late or having girls' nights with Tara and Chloe, she was actually attending expensive dinners, wine tastings, and cultural events around the city. Events that Derek Price was also attending, based on the location tags and timestamp matches in their respective posts. But they were careful never to post photos together. Instead, they'd post separate pictures from the same locations, at the same times, with captions that made it look like coincidence. Amazing dinner at Mistral tonight. Sometimes you need to treat yourself, Jess had written 3 weeks ago. Great meal with a colleague. Important to maintain client relationships, Derek had posted the same evening, from the same restaurant. I screenshot everything, building a timeline that painted a picture I didn't want to see but couldn't ignore. My phone rang. Jess's name appeared on the screen. "Hi, baby," she said, and I could hear the fake sweetness in her voice. "I'm sorry about last night. I was stressed about work, and I took it out on you." "It's okay," I said, though it wasn't. I was thinking maybe we could have dinner tonight and talk about the ring situation. I found some options online that might work within our budget. Our budget? Well, your budget. You know what I mean. Actually, Jess, I've been thinking about the ring situation too. I think we should meet tonight and discuss it. Great. Should I come home around 7? Perfect. See you then. I hung up and immediately called the jewelry store where I'd bought the engagement ring. "Harper's Jewelry, this is David." "Hi, David. This is Mike Harper. I bought an engagement ring from you about 8 months ago." "Of course." The princess cut. Beautiful choice. "How's the fiancé enjoying it?" "That's actually why I'm calling. I need to ask about your return policy." There was a pause. "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Is there a problem with the ring?" "The problem isn't with the ring." David explained that I had 30 days from the original purchase date for a full refund, but after that, they could offer store credit for 70% of the purchase price, assuming the ring was in perfect condition. "I'll need to bring it in for inspection," he said, "but assuming everything checks out, we can process the return immediately." "And the store credit? Does it have to be used for jewelry?" "Not necessarily. We also carry watches, and we have a partnership with several other luxury retailers. You'd have options." After I hung up, I walked around my apartment, looking at all the evidence of the life Jess and I had built together. Her books mixed with mine on the shelves, her coffee mug in the sink, her yoga mat rolled up in the corner of the bedroom. Everything looked normal, domestic, real. But underneath it all was a foundation of lies that I was only just beginning to understand. At 6:30, I heard Jess's key in the lock. "Mike?" she called out. "I brought Thai food from that place you like." She walked into the living room carrying takeout bags and wearing another new outfit I'd never seen before, a silk blouse that probably cost more than most people spent on groceries in a month. New shirt? I asked. This old thing? I've had it forever. She set the food on our coffee table and kissed my cheek. You look tired. Rough day at work? I actually didn't go to work today. Her smile faltered. Are you feeling okay? I'm fine. I just had some personal business to take care of. We sat down to eat, and I watched Jess scroll through her phone while picking at her pad thai. She was distracted, constantly checking messages and typing responses. Busy night at work? I asked. Oh, you know how it is. Client emergencies never stop. She put her phone face down on the table, but it kept buzzing with notifications. Jess, can I ask you something? Sure. Are you happy? With us, I mean. With our relationship. She looked up from her food, and for a moment, I saw something genuine in her expression. Uncertainty, maybe. Or guilt. Of course I'm happy. Why would you ask that? Because lately it feels like we want different things. You want a bigger ring, a more expensive wedding, a lifestyle that requires more money than we actually have. And I want a partner who's satisfied with what we can build together. Mike, I don't think wanting nice things makes me a bad person. I didn't say it did. But I think lying about where you get those nice things might. The words hung between us like an accusation. Jess set down her fork and looked at me with wide eyes. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the new clothes, the expensive dinners, the late nights that aren't actually work events. I'm talking about Derek Price. Her face went pale. Mike, you're scaring me. You sound paranoid. Am I? Because I spent today looking at social media posts, and it seems like you and Derek have been spending a lot of time together. Time you haven't mentioned to me. He's my boss. Of course we spend time together. At Mistral? At the wine bar in the North End? At the art gallery opening last weekend when you told me you were having a girls' night with Tara? Jess stood up abruptly, knocking over her water glass. You've been stalking me? I've been trying to figure out why my fiancé has been lying to me for months. I haven't been lying. Then explain the timeline, Jess. Explain how you can afford designer clothes on your salary. Explain why you and Derek post from the same locations at the same times, but never mention each other. Explain why you came to work with him this morning, but told me you took the tea. She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her calculating, trying to figure out how much I knew and how much she could still deny. You followed me to work? I sat in my car and watched you arrive together. That's not following. That's witnessing. Jess walked to the window, her back to me. When she spoke, her voice was different. Colder. Derek and I have been working closely on some new business development. Sometimes that requires after-hours meetings. I didn't tell you because I knew you'd react exactly like this. React like what? Like someone who expects honesty from his fiancée? React like someone who's jealous and insecure. Insecure about what? She turned around, and her expression was harder than I'd ever seen it. About the fact that Derek appreciates me in ways you don't. About the fact that he sees my potential and wants to help me achieve it. And what does he want in return? Nothing. He's a mentor. Mentors don't usually buy their mentees designer clothes. He doesn't buy me clothes. Then how do you afford them? I have credit cards. Credit cards you pay off with what money? We stared at each other across the living room, and I could see the moment she decided to stop pretending. You know what, Mike? You're right. Derek does buy me things sometimes. Because he values me. Because he thinks I deserve nice things. Because he's not constantly worried about money and budgets and being practical. The admission hit me like a physical blow. So you are having an affair. I'm not having an affair. I'm being appreciated by someone who understands what I need. What you need? What you need is expensive dinners and designer clothes. What I need is someone who doesn't make me feel guilty for wanting more out of life. I walked to the bedroom and returned with the engagement ring box. I set it on the coffee table between us. Take it off. Mike, don't be dramatic. Take off the ring, Jess. If Derek Price appreciates you so much, let him buy you jewelry. She stared at the box, then at me. You don't mean that. I've never meant anything more in my life. Take it off and get out of my apartment. This is our apartment. No, it's my apartment. My name is on the lease. Your name is on nothing, because you've been too busy spending other people's money to contribute anything real to this relationship. Jess's eyes filled with tears, but they looked calculated rather than genuine. Mike, please. Let's talk about this rationally. Rationally? You want to talk rationally about the fact that you've been emotionally cheating on me for months while planning a wedding that you expected me to pay for? I haven't been cheating. What would you call it? I would call it exploring my options. The honesty of that statement was somehow worse than any lie she could have told. I picked up the ring box and held it out to her. Explore them somewhere else. She took the box with shaking hands and removed the ring. For a moment, she looked like she might say something, an apology maybe, or an explanation. Instead, she set the ring on the coffee table and walked toward the bedroom. I'll pack some things. Pack everything. I'll have the rest of your stuff delivered wherever you want it sent. 20 minutes later, Jess stood at my front door with 2 suitcases and a look of defiance that told me she'd already made her choice. You're making a mistake, Mike. The mistake was proposing to you in the first place. Derek's been talking about making some big changes at the firm. I could have helped your business. With what? Lies? Manipulation? No, thank you. She opened the door, then turned back one more time. You'll regret this. The only thing I regret is not seeing who you really were sooner. After she left, I sat in my quiet apartment, holding the engagement ring and feeling something I hadn't expected. Relief. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Mike, this is Tara. Jess's friend. We need to talk. There are things you should know. I met Tara at a coffee shop in Cambridge the next morning. She was one of Jess's closest friends, a petite brunette who worked in marketing and had always been polite but distant whenever we'd socialized together. Thanks for meeting me, she said, sliding into the booth across from me. I wasn't sure if you'd want to talk. Honestly, I'm not sure either. But your text said there were things I should know. Tara fidgeted with her coffee cup, clearly uncomfortable. Look, Mike, I like you. I always have. And what Jess has been doing, it's not right. What exactly has she been doing? She's been planning to leave you for Derek for over 2 months, but she wanted to wait until after your wedding. The words hit me like ice water. Wait until after the wedding? Why? Because Derek's divorce isn't final yet. His wife is fighting for half of everything, and Derek's lawyers told him not to make any major relationship changes until it's settled. So Jess was going to marry you, then have an affair, then divorce you and take half your assets before moving in with Derek. I stared at Tara, trying to process what she was telling me. How do you know all this? Because she told me. She told all of us. Me, Chloe, Sarah from her office. She said it was the smart play. Marry the stable guy, then upgrade to the rich guy once the coast was clear. And none of you thought to warn me? Tara looked ashamed. We should have. But Jess, she has a way of making you feel like you're betraying her if you don't support her decisions. And honestly, some of the others thought it was clever. Clever. I know how it sounds. But Jess has always been ambitious. She's always felt like she deserved more than what she had. When Derek started paying attention to her, she saw it as her chance to get the life she wanted. I thought about all the wedding planning we'd been doing. The venue deposits, the catering contracts, the photographer we'd already paid half up front. All of it had been a lie. Tara, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Okay. Are they sleeping together? She hesitated, then nodded. For about 6 weeks now. Derek has a penthouse in the Back Bay. She's been staying there most nights, then coming home to you in the morning. The betrayal was so complete, so calculated, that I almost couldn't feel it. It was like being told you had a terminal illness, too big to process all at once. Why are you telling me this now? Because last night, after she left your place, she called me crying. But she wasn't crying because she felt bad about what she'd done. She was crying because her plan fell apart before she could execute it. She was angry at you for figuring it out too soon. Too soon. She said Derek's divorce should be final in about 3 months. The plan was to stay engaged to you until then, have the wedding, then start having problems that would lead to her leaving you for Derek. She figured she could get at least half your assets plus alimony. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Half my assets. She really didn't know me at all, did she? What do you mean? I mean, most of my money is tied up in the business I own with Eli. She would have gotten the apartment and maybe some savings. She was planning to blow up both our lives for maybe $50,000. I don't think she understood that. She just saw that you were successful and assumed you were rich. I finished my coffee and stood up. Tara, thank you for telling me this. I know it wasn't easy. Mike, there's one more thing. What? Jess and Derek are planning to start their own PR firm. They've been using information from your business, client lists, project details, stuff like that, to put together their business plan. Derek thinks there's money to be made in architectural PR. The violation felt personal in a way that even the affair hadn't. She's been going through my files? She took photos of documents with her phone. Derek's been coaching her on what to look for. I sat back down. Do you know what specific information they took? Client contacts, mostly. Project budgets. Stuff that would help them figure out which architects have money to spend on PR services. That's proprietary information. That's theft. I know. That's another reason I wanted to tell you. What they're doing isn't just morally wrong, it's probably illegal. I thanked Tara again and drove straight to my office. Eli was at his drafting table, working on plans for a residential project in Newton. Mike, you look like hell. What's going on? I told him everything. About the affair, about the wedding plan, about the stolen business information. Eli listened without interrupting, his expression getting darker with each detail. Jesus Christ, Mike. She was going to marry you just to divorce you? That was the plan. And they're stealing our client information? According to Tara. Eli stood up and started pacing around the office. Okay, first things first. We need to change all our passwords and secure our files. Then we need to figure out what information they actually have and whether we can do anything about it. I don't think we can prove they took anything. It would be her word against ours. Maybe. But Derek Price has a reputation in this town. If word gets out that he's stealing proprietary information to start a competing business, that's not going to go well for him. What do you mean? I mean, Boston's business community is smaller than you think. People talk. And if the right people start talking about Derek Price being unethical, that could kill his new venture before it starts. I spent the rest of the day securing our digital files and trying to figure out what Jess might have accessed. Our client database, our project files, our financial records, she'd had access to all of it through my laptop and home computer. That evening, I got a call from an unknown number. Mike Harper? Speaking. This is Derek Price. I think we should meet. The sound of his voice made my jaw clench. I don't think we have anything to discuss. I think we do. Jess told me about your conversation yesterday. I'd like to clear the air. Clear the air? You've been sleeping with my fiancée and stealing my business information. What exactly do you want to clear? There was a pause. I think there's been some misunderstanding. Could we meet for coffee tomorrow morning? Somewhere public, neutral territory. Why would I want to do that? Because I have something you want. Which is information about what Jess has been saying about you to other people. Information you might find useful if you want to protect your reputation. The threat was subtle but clear. Are you blackmailing me, Derek? I'm offering you a chance to handle this situation quietly, before it becomes more complicated than it needs to be. I agreed to meet him the next morning at a Starbucks in downtown Boston. I had no intention of being intimidated, but I was curious about what kind of game he thought he was playing. Derek Price was exactly what I'd expected. Tall, silver-haired, expensively dressed, and radiating the kind of confidence that comes from never having to face real consequences for bad behavior. Mike, thanks for coming. He stood up and offered his hand. I didn't take it. Let's get this over with. What do you want? I want to apologize. What happened between Jess and me? It wasn't planned. Sometimes these things just develop naturally. Naturally? Right. So naturally that you've been planning to steal my clients and start a competing business. His smile faltered slightly. I don't know what you've been told, but I've been told that you and Jess have been photographing my proprietary business information to use in your new venture. Is that true? That's a very serious accusation. It's a very serious crime. Industrial espionage, theft of trade secrets, conspiracy to commit fraud. Should I keep going? Derek leaned back in his chair, reassessing me. Mike, I think we got off on the wrong foot. I didn't ask you here to fight. Then why did you ask me here? Because Jess is upset, and when Jess is upset, she says things. Things about you, about your relationship, about your business practices. Things that might not be true, but could still be damaging if they got to the wrong people. Such as allegations about how you treat women, about your temper, about some of the creative accounting practices at your firm. I felt a cold rage building in my chest. Are you threatening to have her lie about me? I'm not threatening anything. I'm just pointing out that breakups can get messy, and sometimes people say things they don't mean when they're emotional. And you think you can prevent that by, what? Having me quietly disappear from the situation? I think everyone would be better off if we could all move forward without unnecessary drama. I stood up. Derek, let me explain something to you. I'm not some college kid you can intimidate. I'm a successful businessman with a reputation that's built on actual accomplishments, not on manipulating people and stealing information. If Jess wants to lie about me, she can try. But lies have a way of coming back to bite people. Mike, sit down. Let's talk about this rationally. We're done talking. But let me give you some free advice. If you think you can build a business on stolen information and intimidation, you're going to find out very quickly that Boston's professional community doesn't tolerate that kind of behavior. I walked out of the coffee shop feeling like I'd just declared war, which, I realized, was exactly what I'd done. That afternoon, I called 3 of our biggest clients and had frank conversations about information security and competitive intelligence. I didn't mention Derek or Jess by name, but I made it clear that there might be some attempts to solicit their business using improperly obtained information. By the end of the week, word was starting to spread through Boston's architectural and business communities that Derek Price was starting a new venture and might be using questionable methods to do it. I didn't have to destroy Derek Price's reputation. I just had to give it a little push and let gravity do the rest. 3 weeks after my conversation with Derek, I was working late at the office when Eli burst through the door with a bottle of champagne and a huge grin. Mike, you beautiful bastard, you need to see this. He set his laptop on my desk and pulled up a local business blog. The headline read, PR Executive Under Investigation for Corporate Espionage. The article detailed allegations that Derek Price had been systematically stealing client information from competitors to build his new business. While my name wasn't mentioned, it was clear that someone had provided detailed documentation of Derek's methods. How did this happen? I asked. Turns out, Derek's been pulling this same scam for years. You weren't his first target, just his most recent one. When word got out that he was at it again, 3 other business owners came forward with similar stories. What about Jess? Read the last paragraph. I scrolled down to the end of the article. Price's business partner, Jessica Harper, could not be reached for comment. Sources close to the investigation suggest that Harper, a former employee of Price's previous firm, may have been instrumental in gathering proprietary information from multiple targets. She's going to be charged too? Looks like it. Apparently, she kept detailed records of everything they stole, thinking it would protect her if things went bad. Instead, it's evidence of conspiracy. I should have felt satisfied, but mostly I just felt tired. What happens now? Now? Now they both get to explain to a grand jury why they thought industrial espionage was a good business plan. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Mike, this is Jess. We need to talk, please. I showed the message to Eli. What do you think? I think she's about to ask you to save her ass. And I think you're right. I agreed to meet Jess at a restaurant in Harvard Square. She looked terrible, pale, thin, with dark circles under her eyes that no amount of makeup could hide. Thank you for coming, she said, as I sat down across from her. What do you want, Jess? I want to apologize for everything. You were right about Derek, about all of it. Okay, apology noted. Is that all? Mike, I'm in serious trouble. The district attorney's office thinks I was the mastermind behind the whole thing. They're talking about charging me with multiple felonies. Were you the mastermind? No. Derek came up with the plan. I just went along with it. You just went along with photographing my confidential business documents and planning to defraud me out of half my assets. Right. Tears started streaming down her face. I know how it looks, but I was in love with him. I thought we were building a future together. What does Derek say about that now? Derek's lawyers told him not to talk to me. He's claiming he barely knew me, that I was just an employee who went rogue. I almost felt sorry for her, almost. So he's throwing you under the bus. Completely. His story is that I seduced him to get access to his business plans, then stole information from you to try to impress him. He's painting me as some kind of criminal mastermind. And you want me to do what, exactly? I want you to tell the prosecutors the truth. That I was manipulated. That Derek was the one with the plan and the experience. The truth? The truth is that you spent months lying to me, planning to commit fraud against me, and stealing my proprietary business information. The truth is that you're only sorry because you got caught. That's not fair. Fair? You want to talk about fair? Fair would have been you being honest with me 6 months ago. Fair would have been you breaking up with me instead of planning to marry me just so you could divorce me. I never meant for it to go that far. Then why didn't you stop it? She didn't have an answer for that. Jess, I'm not going to help you. Not because I want to see you go to prison, but because you made your choices. Now, you get to live with the consequences. Mike, please. I'm looking at 5 to 10 years if I'm convicted on all charges. Then you should have thought about that before you decided to become a criminal. I stood up to leave, but she grabbed my arm. Wait. There's something else. Something you should know about Derek. What? He's not done with you. He blames you for ruining his business before it even got started. He's been talking about ways to get back at you. Such as? I don't know specifics. But he's angry, and he's desperate. People are desperate do stupid things. Is that a threat? It's a warning. Derek Price is not the kind of man who accepts defeat gracefully. I left the restaurant feeling uneasy. Derek had struck me as arrogant and manipulative, but not necessarily dangerous. But desperate people often surprised you with how far they were willing to go. That night, I installed a security system at my apartment and started paying attention to whether I was being followed. It felt paranoid, but Jess's warning had rattled me more than I wanted to admit. 2 days later, I found out she'd been right to warn me. I was leaving my office around 8 p.m. when I noticed Derek's Range Rover parked across the street. He was sitting behind the wheel, watching my building. I walked over and tapped on his window. He rolled it down with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Hello, Mike." "Derek. Interesting place to spend the evening. I was in the neighborhood. Thought I might run into you." "What do you want?" "I want to know why you felt the need to destroy my life." "I didn't destroy your life. You did that yourself when you decided to become a thief." "I was building something. A legitimate business that would have employed people and contributed to the community. You killed it before it had a chance to succeed. I protected my interests and my clients. If that killed your business, it's because your business was built on a criminal foundation." Derek's smile faded. "You cost me everything. My reputation, my business, my relationship with Jess. Everything." "Your relationship with Jess?" "You threw her under the bus the minute things got complicated. That was strategy. Legal strategy. That was cowardice." Derek's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "You think you're so much better than me, don't you? So ethical, so pure. I think I'm someone who doesn't steal from people and then act like the victim when there are consequences." "Consequences. Yes, let's talk about consequences. Do you know what it's like to have your entire professional network turn against you? To have clients cancel contracts based on rumors and innuendo? They weren't rumors, Derek. They were facts. Facts you made sure everyone knew about. Facts that were going to come out anyway. I just made sure they came out before you could hurt more people." Derek started his engine. "This isn't over, Mike." "Yes, it is. You're facing criminal charges. Your business is dead. Your reputation is destroyed. It's over. We'll see about that." He drove away, leaving me standing on the sidewalk with the distinct feeling that Derek Price was not someone who gave up easily. Over the next week, strange things started happening. My office building's security cameras were vandalized. My car was keyed in the parking garage. Someone left a dead fish in my apartment hallway. None of it was overtly threatening, but the message was clear. Derek wanted me to know he could reach me whenever he wanted. I called the police and filed a report, but without evidence linking Derek to the incidents, there wasn't much they could do except increase patrols in my neighborhood. Then, on a Friday night, Derek escalated things. I was having dinner at a restaurant in the North End when I noticed him sitting at the bar, watching me. When I got up to leave, he followed me outside. "Mike, we need to finish our conversation." "We don't have a conversation to finish." "I think we do. You see, I've been thinking about what you said, about consequences, and I've decided you're right. Actions should have consequences." "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the fact that you destroyed my life based on the word of a vindictive ex-fiancée and some circumstantial evidence. You never gave me a chance to explain or defend myself. There was nothing to explain. You stole confidential information and used it to try to start a competing business. I was trying to build something. You were trying to tear it down. I was protecting myself and my clients." Derek stepped closer, and I could smell alcohol on his breath. "Well, now it's my turn to protect myself." "By doing what? Vandalizing my property? Leaving dead fish in my hallway?" "I don't know what you're talking about." "Right. Derek, you're drunk and you're about to do something stupid. Go home." "I'm not going anywhere until we settle this." "There's nothing to settle. You committed crimes, you got caught, and now you're facing the consequences. That's how the world works. The world works however people with power decide it works, and you decided to use your power to destroy me." "My power?" "Derek, I'm an architect. I design buildings. The only power I have is the ability to tell the truth about what you did. The truth according to you. The truth according to evidence and witnesses." Derek pulled out his phone and showed me a photo. It was a picture of me leaving my apartment building that morning. "Nice security system you installed. Very thorough. Too bad it can't protect you everywhere you go." The threat was clear now. Derek, if you're threatening me, I'm going to call the police. I'm not threatening you. I'm just pointing out that security is an illusion. You think you're safe because you have cameras and alarms, but you're not. None of us are. What do you want? I want you to call the district attorney's office and tell them you exaggerated the evidence against me. I want you to admit that your accusations were based on jealousy and revenge, not facts. That's not going to happen. Then you're going to find out what it feels like to have your life turned upside down. Derek walked away, leaving me standing on the sidewalk with the certainty that this situation was about to get much worse. The next morning, I called Eli and told him everything. Mike, this guy is stalking you. You need to get a restraining order. Based on what? He hasn't actually threatened me directly. He showed you a photo of your apartment building and told you that security is an illusion. That's a threat. It's a vague threat. I don't think it's enough for a restraining order. Then what are you going to do? I'm going to be very careful, and I'm going to document everything. And if Derek Price wants to play games, I'm going to show him what happens when you play games with someone who's smarter than you are. What does that mean? It means Derek Price thinks he's the only one who can escalate this situation. He's about to find out he's wrong. I spent the weekend preparing for war. If Derek Price wanted to turn this into a battle of wits and resources, I was going to make sure I had every advantage. First, I hired a private investigator, a former Boston police detective named Maria Santos, who specialized in corporate security and personal protection. I gave her everything I knew about Derek and asked her to find out what he'd been doing since his business collapsed. Second, I installed additional security cameras around my apartment building and office, with cloud storage that Derek couldn't access or destroy. Third, I reached out to every professional contact I had in Boston and made sure they knew exactly what kind of person Derek Price was. Not through gossip or rumors, but through documented facts about his business practices and legal troubles. By Monday morning, I had a complete picture of Derek's situation, and it was worse than I'd thought. Mike, Maria said, sitting across from my desk with a thick file folder. Your boy Derek is in serious financial trouble. His legal fees are eating him alive, he's got no income, and his ex-wife's divorce attorney is going after everything he has left. How serious is serious? He's about 3 weeks away from bankruptcy. His penthouse is in foreclosure, his car is about to be repossessed, and he's been borrowing money from some very unpleasant people. What kind of unpleasant people? The kind who charge high interest rates and don't accept excuses when you can't pay. This was bad news. Desperate people with nothing left to lose were capable of almost anything. Maria, I need you to keep monitoring his activities. If he's planning something stupid, I want to know about it before it happens. Already on it. I've got surveillance on his apartment and his usual hangouts. If he makes a move, you'll know about it. That afternoon, I got a call from the district attorney's office. They wanted to schedule a meeting to discuss my testimony in the case against Derek and Jess. Assistant DA Sarah Chen was a sharp, no-nonsense prosecutor who specialized in white-collar crime. Mr. Harper, I want to be clear about what we're dealing with here. Derek Price and Jessica Harper are facing serious charges, and your testimony is crucial to our case. I understand. I'm prepared to testify. Good, but I need to warn you about something. Derek Price has been making some concerning statements about you to his attorney. What kind of statements? He's claiming that you fabricated evidence against him as part of a revenge scheme. He's also suggesting that you might have committed some ethical violations in your business practices. That's ridiculous. I know it is. But he's desperate, and desperate defendants sometimes make wild accusations to try to muddy the waters. I want you to be prepared for that. What should I expect? Expect his attorney to try to paint you as a vindictive ex-boyfriend who couldn't handle losing his fiancée to a more successful man. Expect them to question your motives and your credibility. And how do we counter that? With facts, with documentation, with the testimony of other victims. Derek Price has a pattern of behavior, and we can prove it. After my meeting with the DA, I felt more confident about the legal case, but I was still worried about what Derek might do outside the courtroom. My concerns were justified. That evening, as I was leaving my office, I found Derek waiting for me in the parking garage. "Hello, Mike." "Derek, what are you doing here?" "I wanted to give you one last chance to do the right thing." "The right thing? You mean lie under oath to help you avoid the consequences of your crimes?" "I mean tell the truth. That you exaggerated what happened because you were angry about Jess." "I didn't exaggerate anything. You stole confidential information and used it to try to start a competing business. That's a fact. It's your version of the facts. It's the version that's supported by evidence." Derek stepped closer, and I could see that he was barely holding himself together. His clothes were wrinkled, his hair was unkempt, and his eyes had the wild look of someone who hadn't been sleeping. "Mike, you don't understand what you've done to me. I've lost everything. My business, my reputation, my relationship, my home. Everything. You lost those things because of choices you made. I lost them because you decided to destroy me. I defended myself against someone who was stealing from me. That's not destruction. That's self-defense." "Self-defense? You went scorched earth on me. You didn't just protect yourself, you made sure I could never recover." "Derek, you're a criminal. You don't get to recover from that and go back to victimizing people." "I'm not a criminal. I'm a businessman who made some mistakes. You're a thief who got caught." Derek's facade of control finally cracked. "You sanctimonious bastard. You think you're so much better than everyone else? I think I'm better than people who steal and lie and then play the victim when there are consequences." "Consequences? You want to talk about consequences? Let me tell you about consequences." Derek pulled out his phone and showed me a video. It was security footage from my apartment building, showing me coming and going over the past several days. "I know your schedule, Mike. I know where you live, where you work, where you eat, where you shop. I know everything about your life. Derek, you're threatening me. That's a crime. I'm not threatening you. I'm just letting you know that I've been paying attention. And I'm going to keep paying attention until you fix what you broke. I'm not going to fix anything. And if you keep stalking me, I'm going to have you arrested. Good luck proving it." Derek walked away, but not before showing me another photo on his phone. This one was of Eli's wife, Sarah, leaving her office building. The message was clear. If I didn't cooperate, Derek was going to expand his campaign of intimidation to include the people I cared about. I called Maria Santos immediately. Derek just threatened me and implied he might go after Eli's wife. We need to escalate this. I'll contact the police and see about getting a restraining order. In the meantime, you need to warn your friend and his wife to be extra careful. What about security for them? I can arrange that, but it's going to be expensive. I don't care about the cost. Derek Price has lost his mind, and I'm not going to let him hurt innocent people. That night, I had dinner with Eli and Sarah at their house in Cambridge. I told them everything about Derek's escalating behavior and his implied threat against Sarah. "Jesus, Mike," Eli said, "this guy is completely unhinged." "I know. That's why I've hired security for both of you until this gets resolved." "You don't have to do that," Sarah said. "This isn't your fault." "It is my fault. I'm the one who exposed Derek's crimes, and now he's lashing out at everyone around me." "You did the right thing," Eli said. "Derek Price is a criminal. The fact that he's acting like a criminal now doesn't change that." "I know. But knowing I did the right thing doesn't make me feel better about putting you guys at risk." "Mike," Sarah said, "Derek Price put us at risk when he decided to steal from you and then blame you for the consequences. You're not responsible for his behavior." "Maybe not. But I'm responsible for protecting the people I care about." The next morning, I got a call from Maria Santos. "Mike, we have a problem. Derek Price has disappeared." "What do you mean disappeared?" I mean, he's not at his apartment. He's not at any of his usual locations, and his phone is turned off. He's gone dark. When did this happen? Sometime last night. My surveillance team lost him around 11 p.m. and he hasn't surfaced since. What does this mean? It means he's either planning something or he's running. Given his financial situation and his legal troubles, my guess is he's planning something. Something like what? I don't know. But desperate people in Derek's situation don't usually just disappear to go think things over. They disappear because they're about to do something they can't come back from. I spent the rest of the day in a state of high alert, waiting for Derek to make his move. The security team I'd hired was watching Eli and Sarah. Maria's people were monitoring my apartment and office, and I was carrying a panic button that would bring help within minutes. But Derek was smarter than I'd given him credit for. When he finally made his move, it wasn't against me or the people I cared about. It was against the one thing I valued more than anything else, my reputation. That evening, I got a call from Sarah Chen at the DA's office. Mike, we have a problem. Derek Price's attorney just filed a motion claiming that you fabricated evidence and that the entire case against his client is based on perjury and prosecutorial misconduct. That's insane. What evidence do they claim I fabricated? They're claiming that you created fake documents and coached witnesses to lie. They're also claiming that you have a history of unethical business practices and that this entire case is revenge for your fiancée leaving you. Do they have any evidence to support these claims? They have affidavits from several people claiming that you offered them money to lie about Derek's activities. Who are these people? I can't give you names yet, but I can tell you that they include some of Derek's former employees and at least one person who claims to be a former client of yours. My blood ran cold. Derek had found people willing to lie under oath to support his version of events. Sarah, you know these claims are false. You've seen the evidence against Derek. I know the claims are false. But Derek's attorney is very good, and he's managed to create enough doubt that the judge is ordering a full investigation into the allegations. What does that mean for the case? It means everything is on hold until we can sort this out. And it means you're going to be under investigation for perjury and witness tampering. This is exactly what Derek wanted. He can't win on the merits, so he's trying to destroy my credibility. I know, but we have to take these allegations seriously, even though we know they're false. After I hung up, I sat in my office staring at the city lights and trying to figure out how Derek had managed to turn the tables so completely. Then my phone rang. It was Derek. Hello, Mike. I told you there would be consequences. Derek, where are you? I'm somewhere safe, watching my plan unfold. How does it feel to be accused of the same crimes you accused me of? It feels like being attacked by a desperate man who's willing to suborn perjury to avoid taking responsibility for his actions. It feels like justice to me. Justice? You paid people to lie under oath. I gave people an opportunity to tell their version of the truth. Just like you did. Derek, this isn't going to work. The truth will come out. Will it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like your reputation is about to be destroyed, your business is going to be investigated, and your freedom is in jeopardy, just like mine was. The difference is that I'm innocent. Innocence is a luxury, Mike, and it's a luxury you can't afford anymore. Derek hung up, leaving me alone with the realization that he'd managed to do something I hadn't thought possible. He'd turned me into the defendant. But Derek Price had made one crucial mistake. He'd assumed that I would react to his attack the same way he would, with panic and desperation. Instead, I was going to do what I should have done from the beginning. I was going to destroy him so completely that he would never be able to threaten anyone again. And I was going to do it in a way that would make him wish he'd never heard my name. The war Derek Price wanted was about to begin, but it was going to end on my terms, not his. The next morning, I called an emergency meeting with Maria Santos, my attorney, and Eli. We gathered in my office at 7 a.m. before the rest of the city was awake. Gentlemen and Maria, I began, Derek Price thinks he's checkmated me. He's wrong. But to prove that, I need to know everything, and I mean everything, about how he's financing this counterattack. Maria opened her laptop. I've been digging deeper into Derek's finances since he disappeared. Here's what I found. 3 days ago, Derek received a wire transfer for $50,000 from an offshore account. $50,000? Where did that come from? That's where it gets interesting. The account traces back to a shell company owned by Derek's ex-wife's divorce attorney. His ex-wife is funding his attack against me? Not exactly. I think Derek's attorney is funding it, using money that technically belongs to Derek's ex-wife. It's a way to pay for his defense while keeping his hands clean. My attorney, James Morrison, leaned forward. That's potentially illegal. If Derek's attorney is using client funds to finance a perjury scheme, that's grounds for disbarment and criminal charges. Can we prove it? We can try. But we need more than just financial records. We need evidence that Derek used that money to pay people to lie. I turned to Maria. Can you track down these witnesses who filed affidavits against me? Already working on it. I've identified 3 of them so far. 2 are former employees of Derek's PR firm who were fired for cause, and 1 is a guy named Tommy Chen who claims you stiffed him on a construction contract. Tommy Chen? I've never heard of him. That's because he doesn't exist. At least, not as a contractor. The address on his affidavit is a vacant lot in Dorchester. So Derek created a fake witness. Looks like it. And if we can prove that, his entire counterattack falls apart. What about the other witnesses? They're real, but they have serious credibility problems. One of them was arrested for embezzlement last year, and the other one is Derek's cousin. I felt a surge of hope. So Derek's case is built on lies and fake witnesses. Mostly. But here's the thing, Mike. Even fake accusations can do real damage while they're being investigated. Derek knows he can't win in the long run, but he can make your life hell in the short term. Then we need to end this quickly. How? I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city where Derek Price was hiding, thinking he'd outmaneuvered me. We're going to give Derek exactly what he wants. We're going to have a very public confrontation where he gets to make his case against me. Mike, that's insane, Eli said. Why would you give him a platform to spread his lies? Because I'm going to turn that platform into his confession booth. I outlined my plan. It was risky, possibly illegal, and definitely the kind of thing that could backfire spectacularly. But it was also the only way to end Derek's campaign of harassment once and for all. You want to entrap him, James said. Mike, that could get you arrested. Not entrap, expose. There's a difference. Is there? Because what you're describing sounds like entrapment to me. James, Derek Price has been stalking me, threatening me, and suborning perjury to destroy my reputation. At some point, self-defense becomes justified. Legal self-defense, yes. What you're proposing might not be legal. Then make it legal. You're my attorney. Figure out how to do this without getting me arrested. James sighed. Mike, I've been practicing law for 20 years, and I've never had a client ask me to help them orchestrate a public confrontation with someone who's trying to destroy them. Then this will be a new experience for both of us. Over the next 3 days, we put together a plan that was equal parts legal strategy and psychological warfare. The key was getting Derek to a specific location at a specific time, under circumstances where he would feel safe enough to drop his guard and reveal his true intentions. The location we chose was the Prudential Center, during the lunch rush on a Friday. Lots of witnesses, lots of cameras, lots of ways for things to be documented. The bait was a message I had Maria send to Derek through an intermediary. Mike Harper wants to meet. He's ready to make a deal. The message included a specific time and location, and a promise that I would come alone and unarmed. Derek took the bait. On Friday at noon, I walked into the food court at the Prudential Center wearing a wire and carrying a recording device that looked like a smartphone. Maria's surveillance team was positioned throughout the area, and James was monitoring everything from a nearby office building. Derek was already there, sitting at a table near the center of the food court. He looked terrible, thin, unshaven, wearing clothes that looked like he'd slept in them. "Mike," he said as I approached, "I wasn't sure you'd actually show up. I'm here. What do you want?" "I want you to admit that you fabricated evidence against me." "I didn't fabricate anything." "Then why are you here?" "Because I want this to end." "You've made your point. You've shown that you can make my life difficult. Now let's figure out how to resolve this." Derek leaned back in his chair, and for the first time since I'd known him, he looked genuinely relaxed. "Resolution is simple, Mike. You call the district attorney and tell her that you exaggerated the evidence against me. You admit that your accusations were based on jealousy and revenge, not facts. And if I do that, then I call off my witnesses and we both go back to our lives. What about the people you paid to lie under oath?" Derek's expression didn't change, but I saw something flicker in his eyes. "I don't know what you're talking about." "I'm talking about the $50,000 you used to pay people to file false affidavits. I'm talking about Tommy Chen, who doesn't actually exist." "You're fishing, Mike." "Am I?" "Because I have bank records showing the wire transfer from your attorney's client account. I have surveillance footage of you meeting with your fake witnesses. I have phone records showing calls between you and people who later filed affidavits against me." Derek's relaxed demeanor was starting to crack. "You're bluffing. Try me." We stared at each other across the table, and I could see Derek calculating his options. "Even if what you're saying is true," he said finally, "it doesn't matter. The damage is done. Your reputation is destroyed, your business is under investigation, and your credibility is shot. My reputation will recover when the truth comes out. Your reputation is finished forever. Maybe. But you'll never get back what you've lost. And I'll make sure of that." "How? By paying more people to lie? By filing more false accusations?" "Derek, you're running out of money and running out of options." "I'm not running out of anything. I'm just getting started." Derek leaned forward and his voice dropped to a whisper. "You think this is about money? This is about revenge, Mike. You destroyed my life, and I'm going to spend whatever time I have left making sure you pay for it. Even if it means going to prison for perjury and witness tampering? Even if it means that, because at least I'll know that you went down with me." This was the moment I'd been waiting for. Derek had just confessed to orchestrating a perjury scheme for the purpose of revenge, and he'd done it in a public place, surrounded by witnesses while being recorded. "Derek," I said, "you just confessed to multiple felonies." "What are you talking about?" I held up my phone, which had been recording our entire conversation. "I'm talking about the fact that you just admitted to paying people to file false affidavits for the purpose of destroying my reputation." Derek's face went white. "You can't record me without my consent." "Actually, in Massachusetts, I can. It's a one-party consent state." Derek lunged across the table, trying to grab my phone, but Maria's security team was already moving. Within seconds, Derek was surrounded by 3 large men who politely but firmly suggested that he sit back down. "Derek Price," I said, "you're under citizen's arrest for conspiracy, perjury, and witness tampering." The food court had gone quiet. Everyone was staring at our table, and several people were recording the scene with their phones. Derek looked around at the crowd, then back at me. "You set me up. I gave you an opportunity to tell the truth. You chose to confess to crimes instead. This won't hold up in court. You entrapped me. I didn't entrap you. I gave you a chance to end this quietly, and you chose to threaten me instead. That was your choice, not mine." Security guards from the Prudential Center arrived, followed quickly by Boston police officers who had been waiting nearby. As Derek was being handcuffed, He looked at me with pure hatred. "This isn't over, Mike." "Yes, it is." The arresting officer read Derek his rights, while Maria handed over copies of the recording and the surveillance footage from her team. "Mr. Harper," the officer said, "we'll need you to come to the station to give a statement." "Of course. I'll be there within the hour." As Derek was led away in handcuffs, I felt something I hadn't experienced in weeks: relief. The war was over. Derek Price had destroyed himself with his own words, and I had it all on tape. But as I watched the police car disappear into Boston traffic, I realized that Derek had been right about one thing. This wasn't really over. It was just beginning. Because now I had to rebuild everything Derek had tried to destroy, and I had to do it in a way that would ensure he could never threaten anyone again. The real revenge was just getting started. Epilogue. 6 months later, I was sitting in my expanded office in a new building downtown, reviewing plans for the largest project my firm had ever undertaken. The Derek Price scandal had ironically been the best thing that ever happened to my business. The story of how I'd exposed a criminal conspiracy and defended myself against false accusations had made me something of a local celebrity in Boston's business community. Clients were lining up to work with the architect who'd outsmarted a con man and recorded his confession in the middle of the Prudential Center food court. Eli knocked on my office door. "Mike, you've got a visitor." I looked up to see Jess standing in my doorway. She looked different, older, more tired, but somehow more genuine than I remembered. "Hello, Mike." "Jess, what are you doing here?" I wanted to apologize and to thank you. "Thank me?" "For not destroying me the way you destroyed Derek." I gestured to the chair across from my desk. "Sit down." She sat, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. "I testified against Derek," she said finally. "I told the prosecutors everything about his plan, about the fake witnesses, about the money he used to pay them." "I heard. How did that go?" "Better than I expected. My attorney worked out a plea deal. Probation, community service, and I have to pay restitution to you and the other people Derek stole from." "That's fair." "Derek got 5 years. His attorney got disbarred for using client funds to finance the perjury scheme." "I heard that too." "Mike, I need you to know that I never wanted it to go as far as it did. When Derek first suggested stealing your client information, I thought it was just business intelligence. I didn't realize he was planning to destroy you. But you went along with it. I did, and I'll regret that for the rest of my life." I looked at the woman I'd once planned to marry, and I felt something I hadn't expected. Pity. "Jess, what are you doing now?" "I'm working for a nonprofit, helping small businesses with their marketing. It doesn't pay much, but it's honest work." "Good. Mike, can I ask you something?" "Sure. Do you hate me?" I thought about the question for a long time before answering. "No, I don't hate you. I think you made terrible choices, and I think you hurt people who didn't deserve it, but I don't hate you. Do you think you'll ever forgive me?" "I already have. Not because you deserve it, but because carrying that anger around was hurting me more than it was hurting you." Jess started crying. Real tears this time, not the calculated ones I remembered from our relationship. "I'm sorry, Mike. I'm so sorry for everything." "I know you are. And I hope you learned something from all this." "I learned that there are no shortcuts to the life you want. And I learned that trying to take shortcuts usually costs you more than you ever imagined." After Jess left, I walked to my office window and looked out at the Boston skyline. 3 more buildings designed by my firm were under construction, and 2 others were in the planning stages. My phone buzzed with a text from Maria Santos. Derek Price was denied parole. He'll serve his full sentence. I deleted the message without responding. Derek Price was no longer my concern. That evening, I had dinner with Eli and Sarah at a new restaurant in the North End. We were celebrating the completion of our latest project and planning for the future. "Mike," Sarah said, "have you thought about dating again?" "Not really. I've been too busy rebuilding my business and my reputation, both of which are in better shape now than they were before Derek Price tried to destroy them," Eli pointed out. "True, but I'm not sure I'm ready to trust someone with that kind of power over my life again." "Not everyone is like Jess," Sarah said. "Some people are actually honest." "I know, but it's hard to believe that when the person you thought you knew best turned out to be a complete stranger." "Mike," Eli said, "you can't let Derek and Jess's betrayal turn you into someone who doesn't trust anyone." "I'm not. I trust you guys. I trust my employees. I trust my clients. I just don't trust people who want something from me that they're not willing to earn." "That's fair," Sarah said, "but don't let it make you cynical about everything." "I won't, but I will be more careful about who I let into my life." As we walked back to our cars after dinner, I thought about how much had changed in the past year. I'd lost a fiancé, exposed a criminal conspiracy, survived a campaign of harassment and false accusations, and come out stronger than I'd ever been. Derek Price had tried to destroy me, but he'd actually done me a favor. He'd shown me who I really was when everything was on the line, and he'd proven that I was stronger and smarter than I'd ever imagined. The engagement ring I'd bought for Jess was still sitting in my safe at home. I'd never returned it, partly because I'd forgotten about it during all the chaos, and partly because it had become a reminder of how close I'd come to making the biggest mistake of my life. But maybe it was time to get rid of it. Not because I was bitter, but because I was ready to move forward. The next morning, I drove to Harper's Jewelry and walked in with the ring box. "Mr. Harper," David said, recognizing me immediately. "How can I help you?" "I'd like to return this ring." "Of course. Same terms as we discussed before, 70% store credit." "Actually, I was wondering if you might be interested in a different arrangement." "What did you have in mind?" "I'd like to donate the ring to a charity auction. Something for victims of domestic violence or fraud, people who've been betrayed by someone they trusted." David smiled. "That's a beautiful idea. I think I know just the organization." As I walked out of the jewelry store, I felt lighter than I had in months. The ring was gone, the past was behind me, and the future was full of possibilities. My phone rang. It was a potential client calling about a new project, a community center in a neighborhood that had been devastated by economic crime. "Mike Harper," I answered. "Mr. Harper, this is Jennifer Walsh from the Beacon Hill Community Foundation. We'd like to talk to you about designing a building that will help people rebuild their lives after being victims of financial fraud." I smiled. "Miss Walsh, I'd be very interested in discussing that project. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying your enemies. Sometimes it's building something better than what they tried to take away from you. Derek Price had tried to destroy my life, my reputation, and my business. Instead, he'd given me the opportunity to prove what I was really capable of. And that, I realized, was the most devastating revenge of all.